This is not just another motivational talk. This is about failure, the kind that knocks the breath out of you, the kind that makes you question your worth, the kind that feels final. But philosophy teaches us something shocking: failure is not the end. It is not even your enemy. In fact, some of the greatest philosophers argued that failure is the most important teacher of all. Today, we will explore how thinkers like Socrates, Nietzsche, the Stoics, and even Eastern philosophers like the Buddha help us rethink failure. We'll see how their ideas can transform setbacks into stepping stones, mistakes into wisdom, and rejection into redirection. So, if you've ever failed an exam, lost a job, ruined a relationship, or simply felt like life was slipping away from your grasp, stay with me. Because philosophy has something powerful to say about your struggle. First, why failure hurts. Failure hurts because it shakes our identity. Modern psychology tells us that failure activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. But philosophy digs deeper. It asks, why do we take failure so personally? Socrates, for example, taught through constant questioning. He showed people that they didn't know as much as they thought. For many, this felt humiliating, a kind of intellectual failure. Yet, Socrates argued that admitting ignorance was the first step toward wisdom. Failure, then, was not an endpoint but a doorway. Fast forward to existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre. For him, failure wasn't just a bad grade or a missed promotion, it was a confrontation with freedom. Every failure reminds us that life has no script. We write it ourselves. And if the story goes badly, it's because we were the authors. Painful. Yes. Liberating. Even more so. Failure hurts because we expect control. The Stoics, like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, would say we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgment of them. Losing a job isn't inherently a failure. The label failure is something we attach to it. If we learn to detach, to see events as neutral, then failure transforms. In short, philosophy teaches us that failure feels like death, but in truth, it's closer to rebirth. Second, the Stoic way, turning defeat into discipline. Let's dive deeper into Stoicism because it's probably the most practical school of thought when it comes to handling failure. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, had every reason to call life unfair. But instead, he developed a radical teaching: focus only on what you can control, and let go of everything else. Did you fail a business venture? You can't always control the market. Did you get rejected? You can't control another person's feelings. But you can control your response, your effort, and your character. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic, faced military defeats, political betrayals, and personal loss. Yet, in his private journal, what we now call Meditations, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, obstacles don't block the path, they are the path. Think about it, failure as fuel. Every setback is a training ground for resilience. The Stoics even practiced something called premeditatio malorum, imagining possible failures before they happened. Why? So that when reality struck, they weren't crushed by surprise. Instead, they could calmly say, "I knew this might happen." Now, how do I respond with wisdom? So, the Stoic way isn't about avoiding failure. It's about training the mind to use failure as sharpening stone. Discipline grows where disappointment tries to weaken us. Third, Nietzsche, the power of falling and rising. Now, let's turn to Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who probably had the most radical view of failure. Nietzsche lived a life full of illness, isolation, and rejection. His books didn't sell, he lost friendships, and he died before his work was recognized. by ordinary standards, he failed. Yet, he developed one of the most powerful philosophies of strength. Nietzsche gave us the idea of a more fatty love of fate. Not just accepting failure, not just tolerating it, but embracing it fully. Every fall, every heartbreak, every humiliation, say yes to it. Because without failure, there is no growth. He also wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." This is more than a cliché. For Nietzsche, failure was not a mistake but a necessary part of becoming. His concept of the Übermensch, or Overman, was someone who transforms suffering and failure into creativity, who uses hardship to rise beyond the ordinary. So, what does Nietzsche teach us? Don't run from failure. Don't even just endure it. Use it. Dance with it. Create from it. Because failure is the raw material of greatness. Fourth, the Buddhist view, letting go of the ego. Philosophy is not just Western. The Buddha also had profound things to say about failure, though he rarely used the word. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment. We cling to success, to reputation, to outcomes. And when reality doesn't match our desires, we feel broken. But the problem is not the event, it's our clinging. Think about a student who fails an exam. The event itself is neutral. But the attachment, I must be perfect, I must always succeed, creates pain. Buddhism suggests that by letting go of ego-driven expectations, failure loses its sting. Instead of saying, "I failed," we learn to say, "This is what happened." That shift is powerful. It turns failure from identity into information. Meditation, mindfulness, compassion, all these practices are ways of loosening the grip of ego. And in doing so, they make us resilient. From a Buddhist perspective, failure is not a verdict, it's simply part of impermanence. Nothing lasts, not even defeat. Fifth, modern echoes, Camus and the absurd. Jumping forward to the 20th century, Albert Camus, the French philosopher, faced a different kind of question. What do we do when life itself feels like a failure? When existence seems absurd? Camus told the story of Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to push a boulder up a hill only for it to roll back down, forever. To him, this was the human condition: we strive, we fail, we repeat. Sounds depressing, right? But Camus gave it a twist. He wrote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happiness is not found in escaping failure, but in embracing the struggle." The boulder rolling down doesn't cancel out the meaning, it becomes the meaning. So when life feels repetitive, when failure feels endless, Camus whispers, embrace it anyway. Choose joy, even in the absurd. Sixth, practical lessons from philosophy. So, after traveling through centuries of philosophy, what practical lessons can we take? Redefine failure. From Socrates, failure is not ignorance exposed, but wisdom begun. Detach from outcomes. From Stoicism, focus on what you control, not what you don't. Embrace suffering. From Nietzsche, love your fate, even the painful parts. Let go of ego. From Buddhism, suffering comes from attachment, not events. Find joy in struggle. From Camus, life is absurd, but meaning is made through choice. When we combine these lessons, failure becomes not a scar but a map. It shows where we've been, where we need to go, and who we're becoming in the process. Lastly, here's the truth: you will fail again. You will stumble, be rejected, fall short. But philosophy teaches us not to fear this. Instead, it teaches us to greet failure like an old friend. Because every time you fail, you are in the company of Socrates, who admitted ignorance. You are beside Marcus Aurelius, writing through hardship. You are walking with Nietzsche, turning wounds into wisdom. You are sitting with the Buddha, letting go of attachment. You are laughing with Camus, pushing the boulder with a smile. Failure is not the end of your story, it is the philosopher's beginning. And now, it can be yours too.